There we go.
So I should, oh, you will start, right? Yeah, sorry. Just letting people in.
All right, so we are slowly trickling in from the waiting room. Good morning, I guess good afternoon, everyone, based on where you're calling from. Thanks for joining us today. I'm happy to welcome the CEU project team here today, who's going to tell us a bit more about their project that they've been doing for the last few years. So without further delay, let me hand the reins over to the team. So Keiko, take it away.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's a great pleasure to be here today to share with you a little bit of the hard work of this amazing team. I had very little to do with that, so I would just introduce the wonderful team that has been working on this on the CEU project. I'm happy. I think my main contribution for the project was the acronym for the name. Everything else was a hard work of the team that you see on your screen. So Dr. Linda New Yang and Dr. Sakiko Yamaguchi, who were postdoctoral fellows within the Knowledge Mobilization program at Child Bright, and the brilliant team of Matthias Castaldo and Shafnia Kanagaratnan, who have worked together to develop the critical ethical engagement with youth in patient-oriented research toolkit. And so it's my pleasure to pass on the word to Sakiko to start introducing this project.
Thank you very much, Keiko, and also Pierre. And yeah, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you being here, and I'm very pleased to present our work. So I am just going to share my screen. So again, thank you very much, everyone. So we are happy to share our learning together, critical ethical engagement with youth as CEU project in patient-oriented research. And first, I would like to thank Child Bright for the financial support from the Training Innovation Fund, and as well as today's webinar opportunities for knowledge mobilization work, and also Pierre for being very flexible and supportive in this journey. And so today's webinars has this introduction, overview, and finding of the project. And as also Keiko mentioned, we have youth co-researchers here, Shafnir and Matthias, who are also going to present knowledge mobilization process and product, and we'll have time for the discussions as well. So in terms of the introduction, so Keiko already introduced ourselves. So I think I just wanted to also mention that in our team, Genevieve Servan, who is also a part of the team members, but cannot attend today's webinar, but she was also a summer student for the knowledge mobilization program of the Child Bright. And she also helped those data collection, also that data analysis as well. And also I'd like to thank Alex and Colleen who have also provided admin support for the project. Okay, so, and then today's webinar has 3 objectives. So the first to present our integrated knowledge translation process in a partnership with youth co-researchers and also postdoctoral research trainees. And also secondly, we would like to share research findings and also knowledge mobilization activities and products. And also, lastly, we'd like to share team members' reflections on co-learning process. Okay, so I'll hand over to Linda for the project overview. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sakiko. Now I will provide an overview around the background information leading to this project. First, to understand that it's really important to consider how to engage with youth in health services research. We recognize that it is important to provide a voice for youth to become engaged that can also lead to empowerment. However, in many participatory projects, it may not account for the potential of unintended negative consequences. There can be barriers to engaging with youth. These can include structural barriers, where youth may be seen as lacking competency or they may be a passive agent in the project, and also the tokenism that can occur where youth are simply listed on the project, but it may not be a meaningful role for them. There can also be challenges when researchers want to engage with youth. These challenges can be practical challenges such as scheduling difficulties, ensuring that there are multiple ways for youth to engage in research, and also working under very short timelines while wanting to be flexible to provide opportunities for youth to engage in research. While there are many researchers who want to engage with youth, they also require guidance and training in order to develop skills for how they can engage with youth. And so that leads us to this project where our objectives are to, one, understand the perspectives and experiences of young people with brain-based developmental disabilities who have partnered with research teams, and two, to create training resources for researchers to support the development of research partnerships with young people. And throughout our project, we have been using an integrated knowledge translation approach. We engage with both Matthias and Shafnia, who are here today, and they are members of the National Youth Advocacy Council of Childbray, and they have been involved as co-researchers. We work together as a team throughout all phases of this study. That includes the preparation phase, where we all work together to develop and review the interview guide to make sure that the questions are understandable while also being open-ended to provide opportunities for youth participants to share their experiences. We worked together to design a project logo, and that was a logo that will best represent our team and the work that we're seeking out to complete, as well as creating a recruitment video to describe the importance for other youth to participate in our project. During the phase of training, both Matthias and Shafnia wanted to really be trained on learning different steps to conduct the research project. So that includes learning how to conduct the interviews and how to code the transcripts and what does it exactly mean by coding. So we developed a short YouTube tutorial video to describe how the process of coding can take place. During data collection, we always had one researcher and one youth partner conduct the semi-structured interviews with participants, and having our youth partners to ask questions with youth, which can help to create an environment where youth may feel comfortable in participating. During data analysis, we work together to code the transcripts and to discuss the findings about what do these findings mean and what do we hope to create at the end of the project that can be helpful for other research teams who want to engage with youth. And throughout our project, we want to mobilize this knowledge. We work together to create the poster. In fact, we had our youth partners, so Matthias and Shafnia, really work on developing and creating the poster. And we co-presented together at conferences. We also worked together to co-create the tip sheet, where we worked with a graphic designer about how we would like the tip sheet to look like, as well as reconnecting an iterative process with our graphic designer of changes to be made that will best reflect what we would like to see in the tip sheet. And to guide our work, especially for the data analysis, we use this framework, as you can see on this screen, that is known as the Youth Participation P7 model. And so that really describes the different components or aspects that we would like to look at when analyzing the data. That includes place. So place meaning around the cultural environment and the overall setting for where the engagement may take place. The power relations, so looking at the hierarchy between researchers and youth partners, understanding the perspectives of youth partners and where they're coming from and what lived experiences they're bringing into the project, the process for how youth can become engaged in research, protection, so understanding if there are any measures in place to develop that safety and trusting environment, identifying the purpose for how youth may want to engage in research and what purpose they're seeking for their engagement, as well as positioning. So what kind of roles are available for youth to engage in research and projects? And for our methods, this was a qualitative research project. Our participants included 3 young people who have experience being involved in mental health research projects. And as we mentioned, we conducted semi-structured interviews with these youth participants. We coded the data together as a team to understand what these experiences of these young people would look like, as well as we had team discussions to continuously revise the codes and identify key themes. And these discussions also help to identify what were the tips that we would like to have included in the tip sheet for how to engage with young people in research. And now I'll pass over to Sakiko to describe the results of our project.
Thank you, Linda, for the overview of the project process. And now I'd like to share some of the findings based on that new P7 model. So in terms of those purposes, young people participated not only to share their lived experience for changes, but also to learn and contribute to the research process. So I'd like to share some of those quotes from participants. So oftentimes we heard that I just wanted to be able to use my lived experience to make a difference. So sharing lived experience was mostly like a primary purpose of joining the research team, but also there's an interest in learning new skills and new knowledge. So there was another participant saying that I was interested in learning facilitation skills and building those for the project. The second, in terms of the place, so those interviewed participants were engaged through those online platforms. So online platform made engagement opportunities more accessible. There was also one participant who was coming from the rural area. But also the online participation became challenging when the camera needed to be kept on. So that's one thing we can also consider when we think about accessibility. And then, so there was one participant mentioning that I think just the expectation of having your video camera on the whole time was a little bit hard because of the health conditions the participant had. And in terms of the perspectives, so young people always saw diversity of participants since one individual voice cannot represent the whole community. So there's also this idea that so the diversity is important because of this one voice cannot represent that. So one participant mentioning that also, I feel like oftentimes the voices are Toronto Central, and just to be able to give voice to the rural experience is important. And there is another participant mentioning that also oftentimes because the organizations and research network are connected with each other, so those young people who are joining kind of tended to be a very similar faces. So emphasizing the need for more community outreach to have diversity in the participants. And in terms of the positionings, young people we interviewed, they're always seeking those roles that align with their personal goals and interests. And so there was one participant mentioning that it would have been nice to be able to facilitate more groups than just the one. But in this case, this person was not able to do it because of the schedule has an issue. And then in terms of the protection, although those young people have some accessibility needs, it was not easy for them to ask for accessibility support and safety until they built rapport with the research team. So there was one participant saying that at that point, a role of research assistants really knew me and what I have been through. And it made me feel a little bit more confident in asking what I needed. The second project, she felt not connected and a bit harder for me to ask for what I needed. So that really shows the importance of those trust building and safety so that young people can ask for the support without hesitation. And in terms of the process, those interviewed young people were eager and also able to contribute to various knowledge mobilization activities after the study. So uh, and then, so one participant was saying that actually, although the project is ending, and then the research team may go on to the next step in terms of the conference presentation or article publication, but from youth perspective, satisfaction might be hard, more like sadness, because it felt like, okay, what do I do now? The research team was moving on and continuing. So that really shows how we actually wrap up and conclude the project. It's important. And in terms of the power relations, so they felt those power difference or imbalance within those team. But when researchers genuinely ask for their ideas to be incorporated into the project, actually it led to building trust and minimized power imbalances. So there was a quote from a participant. So it really felt like it wasn't just the suggestions when we were talking. It was that we were seen as experts in our own lived experience. It's not like, oh, okay, thanks for feedback. So these are those 7 areas which we looked at based on the interview results. And we actually drew some recommended actions to support researchers building those research partnerships with young people. So one recommended action will to discuss goals, motivation, and expectations at the beginning, but also throughout the research process, because those motivation and expectations might change as well. And also in terms of those recruitment, that it is important to recruit individuals with diverse perspectives in terms of age, gender identities, also geographical location, and also disability conditions. And there are many intersecting identities that we can also learn from. So it is important to consider this diversity and also to have diversity being reflected on the research members is important. And another action for the recommendation is to create a trusting space where youth partners feel comfortable sharing ideas and feedback, and also to ask for some support needs as well. And while we also make sure those what they're sharing is kept confidential. And also to provide accessible engaged formats is also critical. So what we heard from those interviewed participants is that it was very helpful to have like a different formats of engagement. So it's not just like a Zoom and then to speak up, but also through chat and anonymous survey, or like after the meeting, if there's a follow-up email to connect with other people who they feel comfortable sharing is also important. And lastly, to create opportunities for youth partners to develop further skills. So as I mentioned before, the motivation and purpose for engagement in the research team is not just to share lived experience, but also develop also new knowledge to build their CVs. So I think it is also important for researchers to create the opportunities for skills development as well. So now I'm happy to pass on to Matthias, who is going to also share his experience in knowledge mobilization activities.
Thanks, Akeku. So as already mentioned, my name is Matthias, and I'm a member of the Youth Advisory panel with ChildBright. So Shaq and I were both very fortunate to be part of this study as co-researchers, and we got to kind of have a really kind of great opportunity to learn quite a bit about research and be involved in this study. So for instance, like when we were fortunate to learn how to do like the interviews, for me personally, it was like a new experience of conducting a semi-structured interview in the context of research. So kind of doing the training with Keiko and Linda was kind of a really kind of eye-opening experience in learning how to do it. And Shafni and I were able to also kind of use our lived experience to build a rapport with the participants when conducting the interviews. And this kind of helped not only kind of create like a really great rapport, but I think allowed for the participants to open up and share their experiences of being a part of kind of different research studies and kind of how they felt about them. And also being able to ask kind of further questioning to steer the direction kind of in the way kind of, that we thought or the way that the participant wanted was really great because it opened up kind of another opportunity to kind of learn more about their experiences in research and kind of what they felt and what they were kind of looking for and kind of what their just overall experiences with it and what they had learned from it. So that was a really kind of great opportunity. And then when it came to the data analysis, I know for me personally, I haven't done data analysis in the context of a qualitative study. I've done it in the context of a quantitative study. So when I heard data analysis, my initial thought was, oh, we're going to be coding in the context of quantitative and numbers. But in this context, it was more so about finding themes and based on kind of what the participants had shared. So that was a new experience for me and kind of learning how to, find common themes within the participants and what they shared was kind of something really new and it flexed a different muscle for me in terms of, what to look out for. And then the opportunities where we had in our meetings to kind of discuss themes and find new themes was really great because I think through discussion, we were able to kind of learn about, oh, like I actually saw this connection with the participants and they shared this and what do we think about that? So that was kind of really great and it was great kind of discussion points. And then also, we were also fortunate to get to to create kind of the posters for the Child Bright Conference last summer in June 2023, and as well as for the International Conference in Clinical Ethics and Consultation Conference that just occurred at the end of May, and this is kind of actually where this picture came from. So when creating it, I know for me personally, like I'd never done a poster in the context of research. So I was a little bit apprehensive and nervous on how to do it, but I really kind of wanted to get involved and learn how to do it. So I kind of was able to I did a kind of a draft and then we kind of came back to the meeting. And then I took kind of the feedback that we had from the meeting in terms of learning how to format it and learning how to, what to include in the poster to kind of create the poster that we ended up having. So that was kind of a really kind of great, learning opportunity for me. And then the poster that we created, you can kind of see in the background over there. And then also, Shaf and you were able to attend the conference that you see here, the Clinical Ethics and Consultation Conference. So getting to kind of present the findings and kind of the overall process of the study alongside Keiko was really, really cool, really amazing because we kind of got to talk about not only kind of the results and the findings and the implications of the study and the methodology, but also talk about kind of our own experiences with being co-researchers with the study and kind of and share kind of what we learned and what the training involved as well. And I'll pass it over to Shafnia.
Thank you. So now this is like the tip sheet we've been working on. So we created a tip sheet to support researchers in developing research partnership with youth in patient-oriented research. After data analysis, we started working on the tip sheet through Google Jamboard. At a team meeting, we came up with an idea of showing a roadmap to provide practical action items at each stage of the research process. So we had 5 categories. One was designing, the second one was recruitment, the third was preparation and onboarding, the fourth was working with youth partners, and the final one was wrapping up the project. We then started to extract key ideas from the result of our coding analysis on what researchers should know when working with youth with brain-based disabilities, along with selecting quotes from the interviews that emphasize or support the potential tips. So one of the important but aspect that emerged from the interview was compensation for youth partners During the interview, a participant shared why they preferred monetary compensation as opposed to a gift card. And they made a good point because they said a monetary compensation was more accessible as opposed to a gift card because the gift card value is usually like, say, $10 to $20, but they're often retailed at a place where you have to go out of your way to purchase it, and it would even cover the cost, right? So they said it's really not cheap, right? So using those ideas, right, and what the interviewees have said, we included that compensation can be adjusted depending on the youth's preference or background into the tip sheet. We then worked on refining the content of the tip sheet for clarity and consistency to match the tip sheet's objective. Once the graphic designer sent us the tip sheet draft for us to review, as a group, we discussed our comments and edits that we think it should be made, such as the design details, where we should rearrange some of the materials or the content, which led up to the most recent version of the tip sheet you guys can see here. And for me, it was really interesting to see how we can transform the result of the study, especially from 3 participants, to create something that can be used in a more practical sense, right? And that can show that there's no limit from learning from others' lived experience. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Shafnia, and also Matthias. And thank you very much, everyone. So this is the end of our presentation. So yeah, we are happy to also answer any questions or begin with the discussions. I'm just going to share stuff.
Annette, you have a question?
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I especially love the tip sheet because it's one thing to do the research and, it was just so elegant in the way it was carried out with really authentic engagement. But the knowledge mobilization piece of it is so, so important. I'm just wondering if that tip sheet that you showed at the end, is it ready to go live? Because today is International Youth Day, and it would be a wonderful thing to push out today if it was ready to go.
Yes, I think we have gone through a couple times of those revision, and I think it's ready to go. So I'm just going to share as well, and thank you very much for your comments.
I guess another just more practical question as well, Sakiko. So once this is fully published, where would we be able to find it?
Yes, so I think still we have to make this a very accessible. So for sure, you to use those network like a ChatBright and also other existing networks. We have to disseminate further so that after people can use it.
Perfect. And I see you just uploaded it into the chat. So anyone here, welcome to have a sneak peek and see the current version or download the current version just from the chat. Elise, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
This was very exciting presentation, and I have a question for Matthias and Shafnia. Does this experience fit in, or how do you consider this experience in your future career path? Did it inform it? Did it raise more interest, new interest for you guys? And your presentation and the work you've done on these projects, it's been very great and exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've always had a bit of an interest in research. I know since I started university, when we got to kind of take the research methodology class and learn about that, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting, right? And then in university, I kind of got to be a part of essentially for a couple of credits, you would essentially act as a study for year 4 and graduate students who are doing studies. So you kind of learned a little bit about that. And one of my earliest experiences with that was I got to be essentially like I was in an experimental study where they wanted to test to see if people were essentially honest. Um, and it was kind of like one of those experiences. And it was like, oh, like this is like my textbook coming to life essentially. So like that's kind of really where it came from. And then in year 3, I got to come do some more research with a professor, but it kind of had stalled after that just because of like I started working and my interest kind of went in a different direction. But I've always kind of wanted to go back to it. So having this opportunity to be a part of it was with Keiko, Linda, and Shafnia and Genevieve. It was really kind of an opportunity for me to like learn more about research and kind of develop kind of those academic skills. So like it's definitely kind of like informed me and helped me kind of get over that initial fear of getting involved in research. But yeah, I think in terms of future considerations, because like I think like I am considering maybe potentially going back to school. Like this has probably really kind of helped uh really my academic my learning skills and developed kind of like the research skills I think needed to, you know, if I want to go back to school, for example. And also just with like work in general and career wise, like these skills are incredibly like they translate into other avenues, right? Learning how to find themes and different analysis and different writings, learning how to conduct an interview and develop kind of rapport and allow kind of the interviewee to, you know, share their own thoughts, right? These are all skills that can be translated to other aspects of my career. So really, this has really kind of opened up for me in a lot of avenues. And has also essentially, you know, helped a lot with my confidence as well with getting involved in research and taking the leap with new experiences. Anything to add, Shafni?
Yeah, I was just typing in the chat, but yeah, I can share it as well. Like, um, same thing for me too. I actually decided to go back to school after I dropped out a couple years ago. Um, I didn't know about like patient-oriented research, right? Or that kind of field of research exists, and I thought it was really interesting because like especially being able to interact with people, right? And then trying to find a more practical use for it, right? Because like my job is like I'm a nurse, like I'm a practical nurse, so like I'm pretty much the end user if anything was to happen in research. So I really like seeing how it works from like the start to finish. So yeah. But overall, it's been a really interesting experience coming from someone with no background at all.
Wonderful, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Elise, Shafnia, and Matthias. So any other questions from the group?
So it sounds like it was an amazing learning experience for the youth partners, and it's just really wonderful to hear about it. I'm wondering about the 2 postdocs because, you know, part of postdoc training is really to prepare the person for independence as an early career researcher. And, you know, part of being a researcher is learning how to supervise trainees, but this provides some training in supervision and training. And I just would love to hear the perspectives of the 2 postdocs on that process of training partners with lived experience.
Yes, so thanks for that question. So I think, okay, as a postdoc of Child Bright and also in this knowledge, from the knowledge translation program. So I was doing another like case study regarding those patient-oriented research and then like innovation incubator case study. And then while doing that, the case study, I became very interested in doing this research with young people in the child right. And then, so I think for me, like another research project I was involved was kind of also like learning experience for me, and also having Linda, who also has interesting, different, but very important research experience with young people. a great learning experience for me. And I guess, and Shafnia and Matthias, always, yeah, like your like eagerness and interest has been like a very important source for me to keep motivating and learning and how I can do this better. And that's like like each time it has been a great learning experience for me.
I'll echo what Sakiko also said. I'm also very grateful to have had the opportunity to be involved. So I joined the project a bit later after the Sakiko and this team received the Childright Training Innovation Fund. And so I almost felt like being a consultant when I first joined. I really share my experiences when I have worked on other projects with young people and young siblings, but just also recognizing about my role coming to a project, what kind of expertise is being sought, how I can contribute. So Sakiko and the team was very open to that, which I'm very grateful for, and really brought me on board as in the role of really being an equal partner throughout with everyone on the team, while also recognizing for me, even though I've been involved with other patient-oriented research projects, it's recognizing that not every team is going to be the same. Every team is going to look a little bit different, playing to the strengths as well as the different challenges that teams might experience. And so that really moves to the next point around the co-supervision kind of model, moving into an early career researcher stage. And so that's really the communication with youth partners, which is something that I always want to make sure I keep in mind about. So for example, Matthias and Shafnia, I know that similar to other youth partners I've worked with is having that interest in data analysis. So I shared a lot of the resources that I've used in the past. So bringing those experiences I've had. But I think something new is that you also wanted to work on the in doing the interviews together with youth participants. So we did, for me, it was new training about how do Shafnia, how does Sakiko and I provide that kind of training to Shafnia and Matthias, and how does it work when you have two interviewers instead of the typical one interviewer during interviews? And also that supervision around Matthias, you shared you really wanted to create posters, for example, and attend conferences. So providing support in that sense and how to share different resources I've had in the past. I think moving forward, it's around kind of having that reflective piece about how to work together as a team. It's not just that I'm, as a researcher, comes with all this experience, also how I can learn so much. For example, Matthias and Shafnia shared a lot during when we created the tip sheet and picked up on things that I probably wouldn't have thought about if the for youth when working with youth.
That's great. I have a question for the entire group, but perhaps more for Matthias and Shafnia to respond. So this was a project that. Sorry?
Oh, no. I don't know if you had some like discussion questions, or I don't know if we have other questions.
I think Keiko
no,
had a question. Yes.
Yes. I think Sakiko is cutting up. Yeah. No, Sakiko, yes. I have a question for Matthias and Shafnia in terms of advice. I know we did the tip sheet in the project, and it was a very meta project, right? Because it was doing research with youth about how do we do research with young people, and one big challenge that we had was recruiting participants, right? And we were wondering for a while, like if like what's the way to get people interested in participating beyond the ones that are already participating. So there's a lot of even using the Youth Advisory Council. You end up being asked a lot, right? Because we are once we have someone, or once we engage with someone who is interested, it's easy, or it's comfortable, or it's possible to go to the same people always. So if you had thoughts, because the cheat sheet is for engaging, assuming that people are already in. But what are if you had thoughts or suggestions on what are ways to attract other people to come to the fold. And maybe Sakiko can share, like we had an example in another project that Sakiko got, which is a good segue to what you asked, Annette, about leadership in patient-oriented, like Sakiko got a CHR grant for youth engagement, and so did Linda, actually, for their next step of as independent investigator. But from Shafni and Matthias, sorry, that's a longer question. But if you had thoughts or reflections on how to involve people at the first point, right? Because I think once you have a positive experience, it's maybe easier to stay in and to stay interested and whatnot. But before you are ever part of an advisory council, or if you know any research group, if you had any thoughts on how this can be done so that we can increase the pool of interest and participation.
Is it in the context of like research patient partners or co-researchers, or as in like participants for a study?
No, in research, both,
Yeah.
but I think more as partners. I think it's harder, right, to get people to partner in research. So yeah, maybe, but if you have thoughts on both, please share.
So I think like it's never necessarily, it's not always, like, as we all know, it's not always easy, just because like you essentially have to find that pool, find your population. I know from my own experience, like it's as like it's a bit like one can be apprehensive to join a study as a co-researcher or a patient partner, just because there's might be like, oh, it's like I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I can do data analysis or do an interview or coding or anything like that. So I think kind of like there might be that apprehensive and that fear of like, can you like intellectually kind of handle the role of being a co-researcher. So I think kind of maybe that's where essentially like one difficulty might arise for some youth, and also the other one is like maybe not necessarily knowing it's out there, right? And it's more so, I think, like depending on kind of maybe your academic stream or kind of where you're located, like there might not be kind of a whole lot of kind of research opportunities, right? So for instance, like I would say, like if researchers are targeting or wanting to partner with other patient partners, I think one way is to like go to like, the academic institutions, right? And I'm sure our researchers are already doing this, but kind of really that's like one really great way. And maybe there could be an incentive of like, if possible, like for like a course credit or volunteer hours, or being able to use them as a reference, or like a gift card. Maybe that could be like one incentive to get them involved, and really I think explain kind of the whole process. And some of this is what I'm sharing is actually what the participants had also shared as well during the interviews, is essentially maybe like explaining like the whole process so that they understand kind of what they're getting into and what they're going to get out of, how their involvement is going to be utilized and what it entails, is kind of like one method. And then I think another thing is like, because I think a lot of, and this is what also participants had shared as well, is a lot of researchers tend to go to essentially like the typical avenues, right? Academic institutions, the big institutions in the big cities, right? Whether that's a hospital or whatever an organization in Toronto or Montreal or whatever it is. But then like you miss out on kind of those individuals that live kind of more outside of it, whether that's in the middle of Ontario, Alberta or whatever. And they offer kind of like they might offer a different perspective, and a different set of skills, right? That maybe something from Toronto doesn't have, right? For example. So being able to, I think, target those populations as well, is really important. Is really important to do so as well. How to do it, maybe there's a small organization in the smaller communities that the researcher could then target and say, hey, can you put where I'm doing this research, I'm looking to partner with somebody with this type of experience, can we put it out there, right? And then also maybe in regards to like academic institutions, like not only going maybe through the faculty, that could be one method, also maybe going through like the student unions that exist in the universities and colleges, just because like, when it's coming from a student, somebody similar to your own age, it's the message might be a little bit different versus somebody else. But yeah, those could be a few opportunities, as well as like obviously hospitals as well, which we actually tried to do, but it was a little bit, but obviously that's a different whole ethics situation, but that's my method. So those are just kind of my initial thoughts and opinions in regards to that.
Thank you. Those are, great thoughts. I hadn't thought of those other locations. That's very, very good. And I see Shafnia answered in the chat. Do you want to add to this, Shafnia, or I can have people go to the chat?
Yeah, I just wrote it so I don't forget what I was going to say. But yeah, overall, I think the two biggest thing was in terms of participant recruitments, right? Like, I wouldn't say better incentive, but a more flexible one. Like all of them did have this sense like monetary compensation would just be a lot more easier to access. And I was reflecting on myself and I can see, yeah, right. It would be so much more easier. Like a gift card really does limit, right? What you can use it for. A participant did provide a great idea of maybe just a gift card that provides a lot more use, like those, like a Visa card, right? A Visa gift card. And another way, which I think we could have done was like, now is like maybe providing them an extra incentive of getting involved. A lot of them said they wanted to get involved in projects for like their own like professional, like academic or career wise, right? To get them involved in research, right? So maybe like offering them to review the tip sheet for like an hour or two and compensating for that as well, right? Would that maybe have like enticed more participant interest, right? Maybe for them now they're saying, okay, it's like a not a two-in-one deal, but like, oh, it's something they could add into their CV later on, right? Maybe they feel like that there is more value in sharing their lived experience, right? That they can see that there's an actual use, right? So that's like one thing, but two things I thought of, yeah.
Those are great. Thank you so much. I don't know if other people have other questions or thoughts that you would like to add or to ask the group.
I'm not seeing any new ones popping up in the chat, Keiko. So yeah, if anyone has any other lingering questions to ask, feel free. We have a few minutes left, and yeah, I guess, but one question maybe I had, and let's say we have another question that the group is putting forward. Going back to you again, Matthias. During your presentation, you were mentioning the shift in terms of you having to now learn how to do a qualitative data analysis. I'm just wondering, what was that like for you? And like, was that the team supporting you with resources they have on hand, or was it having access to, say, a course that sort of walked you through the basics of doing that type of data analysis?
So in regards to kind of that, with the data analysis, so Lyndon's Cakes gave Shafni and I kind of essentially training on how to do it and how to use the program, that we used. I think it was called DTOS, correct, Sakeku?
Deduce, yeah.
Deduce, sorry, deduce. So essentially kind of through that, like, and they provided kind of resources and learning how to do it. So that kind of was really helpful. And we did a meeting, and during the meeting, kind of like Skeku and Linda essentially walked us through like how to code, like, this is where the transcript is, and then you highlight this, and this is where you put it into one of these things, or if you have different thoughts, you can add a comment, etc. So that was kind of like really helpful, because initially, as I mentioned before, like I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, this is a little bit nerve-wracking, right? Because that's that apprehensive not knowing. So through essentially that training to providing kind of resources, and that meeting kind of was really, really helpful. And then kind of once I essentially started doing it, it becomes a little bit more fluid in terms of finding themes. And then the meetings that we had subsequently where we discussed kind of the analysis was really helpful, because then it's like, okay, that kind of helps tidy up a little bit of like learning, how to match the themes a little bit better. How to add, if you have any other thoughts, those are also really beneficial as well. And getting that opportunity to discuss kind of, what you analyzed was really helpful as well in terms of that learning experience.
Great to hear. And yeah, it's wonderful just to see the team, supporting all the partners to get up to speed and share in the work. So that was a really great way of doing it. So thank you to the CEU team. So I'm not seeing any other questions pop up. So if after we wrap up today, you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to pass them on to Kiko and the rest of the team. Oh, I see Corinne has her hand up. Hello, Corinne.
Hi, just in the nick of time, I'm just trying to formulate my question. That's so I think I got it. I want to make it simple for the team to respond. But first of all, I just want to commend everybody for just how successful it sounded that this engagement opportunity was for the ENYAC. And I'm thinking about it because, often in the engagement program, we're asked to match youth research partners in short-term engagement activities or projects. So I was curious if the team had like top tips, whether it's on the tip sheet or not, but just even in your own reflections of engaging the youth partners early, and not just that, but when it comes to creating a safe space and then allowing them, because I was really interested in how you were talking about having that kind of safe space and how it allows them to ask and advocate for their needs. So I was curious if the team could comment on that.
Thank you very much for the questions. And I guess that part, that's being also a learning process, and also it involved my reflections throughout the project. And so for me, working with youth with lived experience, also like a first time for me. So I guess by doing and then I learned, but at the same time, I guess by doing some follow-up questions so that maybe if Shafnir or Matthias needed some support or some questions, so that they can reach out to me anytime so that I can accommodate whatever the support they need. That's how I was trying to do. That might not have been sufficient, but at least I kind of trying to do it. And particularly maybe as Matthias was sharing the experience of data analysis and learning qualitative data analysis, it's not that like easy process. So maybe, it may not have been easy. And then, depending on the background, it's like even for Matthias and Shafnia, the learning experience might have been very different. So I guess always like trying to see what are the needs for the support, I guess, to think and how, I can create a space for them to, reach out to me if they need some support. I guess that's how I was trying to do it. And maybe, Linda, Shafnir, and Matthias, you can also reflect.
I'll add on that based on the tip sheet with the 3 participants, they also mentioned around with a safe and trusting environment, it's around having a dedicated facilitator or person who they can connect with. It can be quite intimidating to show up in a meeting where there are lots of researchers and from different backgrounds, and it's an unknown environment for them. So someone who they can check in outside of the meeting, someone who they can talk with. And another part was short-term projects, regardless of the project. On the tip sheet, we also mentioned around wanting to know what happens at the end of the project and if there are opportunities to be involved after the project ends. Because Shafnia, you also brought up during our meetings that with a participant, it just kind of felt like the research team moved on. And so what happened next? Are there things or activities that youth can be involved with afterwards, or even just to know what were the next steps that the research team took?
Thank you so much.
Could I just, a very quick question. I was wondering if any of the participants were Indigenous youth from Indigenous communities. And then if not, if there's a next step consideration around that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think particularly we have had very much like hard time recruiting participants for this project. And then as Keiko posed a question, I think it's like kind of a challenge and how we can actually reach out to those young people who we haven't reached out to. And then so that's kind of very ongoing inquiry for us. And then particularly those, indigenous young people, I guess, a lot of like those cultural aspects that we also have to learn, and then how we can also, adapt the way we do the research to their way of knowing and way of thinking. And I think that would be like a learning journey.
We're coming up to the top of the hour. Again, if you have any lingering questions after the session today, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to connect with members of the CU team to get in touch with you, and we can go from there. And so later today, we will have happily circulate a link to this recording. So feel free to have a look or share it with any of your colleagues who may not have been able to join us today. And we're also in that follow-up email. We'll just send a bit of a feedback survey for you as well. And this hopefully will highlight some other areas that you want us to develop in this webinar series. So if you have any thoughts about other topics that you think would be particularly of interest to your group, let us know, and we'll work them into the schedule as we develop our sessions over the next couple of months. So with that said, I just want to thank Shafia, Matthias, Linda, Sakiko, and Keiko for joining us today and giving us an update on their project. Looks really great, and I'm looking forward to the tip sheet being officially launched and seeing some use out there. So hopefully we'll have you back again in a bit and hear more about how the project has gone and how it is being implemented. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will connect again soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.